Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Stefanie Hoover with LP Magazine. And I'm here today talking with, I don't even know why I talk to you, David. Like, ugh.
We talk so often.
We do. I feel like I do talk to you a little bit. I send you a lot of text messages. I know that. But it is good to see you. And I love your background. It's very patriotic. David, for those that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about you?
Yeah, well, Steph, it's always a pleasure to talk to you and the LP Magazine fan base. For those that don't know me, David Johnston, I am the Vice President of Asset Protection and Retail Operations with the National Retail Federation. I've now been with the NRF for well over 3 years, almost halfway into my fourth year. So this is going to be my fourth NRF Protect, which I know we'll talk about
Yeah.
as the MC of the event. And my role is to work with the retail industry in an advocacy and membership engagement in all things asset protection.
Nice. I cannot believe 4 years almost. That's incredible to me.
It goes by pretty quick, especially at my age.
Right? We only have a few good years left. Awesome. Well, I know we're going to talk about a lot of different things today. One of them will be protect and what's happening there. But just to kick us off, what's new on the street? What's the word on the street about ORC? What are the retailers telling you?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that question because, we have just finished our annual LP survey that we send out to the field. It has just come back and in partnership with the LPRC, where we've seen a kind of a first glance at some of the analysis. And based on some of those results, they're early, but the early results as well as some conversations, it's good that we're starting to see maybe a leveling off of the number of incidents that are happening at the retail store location. So shoplifting, merchandise theft. Now, very important to understand that when we say leveling off, these numbers are excessively high from what they've been in the past. I know we previously reported in our 2023 report a 93% increase from 2019, which was pre-COVID, to 2023. So if you look at and since that time, year over year, they've increased. So if we're seeing a leveling off, they're still very, very high numbers and not what we'd like to see in the retail environment. But I think what we're starting to hear is that throughout the past couple of years, retailers have had the opportunity to harden their retail locations. Many have implemented security measures, enhanced training, technologies in order to focus on deterring some of these large scale thefts. We've definitely seemed to hear a lot less of these mob related thefts or these smash and grabs. Some
Mhm.
segments, they still, are the type of theft method, or preferred theft method. But overall, I think we're starting to see a leveling off of the retail store incidents. On the flip side of that, unfortunately, we're starting to see ORC expand and evolve into all other areas of the retail ecosystem. Cargo theft is most certainly on the increase.
Mhm.
Gift card scams, phone scams, digital and e-commerce fraud, return fraud. So we're starting to see a pivot, I think is the reality of it, where we've gone and made some changes in one area, the retail stores, from that merchandise product theft. And these organized groups, these theft groups, are starting to pivot and transition into these other frauds and scams. Many of them becoming a lot more sophisticated, organized, and even challenging for the retail community to prevent.
Do you think that trend is due to these are like lower risk options of theft? Like they got a soft target, let's say gift card scams or phone scams. Like that's a very low risk crime probably for the perpetrator.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors here. We have to also look at, we've done a great job over the past couple of years of really getting law enforcement and prosecutors and state legislators to really understand what's happening in the retail industry, right? And we've seen a number of states amend or create new laws against retail theft, or I'll say merchandise theft, the shoplifting, the product. We've seen, you know, a turnaround in law enforcement in pockets, not all across the nation, but in pockets of the nation where these aren't property thefts anymore. These are serious criminal offenses, particularly when they're involving organized theft groups. So I think we've seen law enforcement again, become better partners in that merchandise theft area. But to your point, they're moving and they're pivoting to these other areas that still don't have the adequate laws that can help strengthen or deter someone from getting involved. You mentioned the gift card fraud. That's a big play right now in a lot of states. Changing some of the laws to make gift cards financial instruments of fraud, or the value of a stolen gift card is not the value of the physical card itself, but the monetary value, of that card to help with tampering. So it's a constant cat and mouse game.
Yep.
And I think we're trying to just continue to plug, I don't mean to do all these different types of analogies, but plug these holes in this dam of organized retail crime.
Yeah. Yeah. I compare it to almost like a cancer, right? Which you treat the cancer over here, but then it may spread over here where it's not being treated. Maybe we'll get to some point, maybe 60, 70 years from now where crime is completely eliminated, but maybe not in my lifetime.
No, and we all know, look at this is retail. Retail evolves,
Yeah.
and we're starting to see, there's a positive side of it where, if you go back 4 or 5 years, we didn't have buy online, pick up in store, or buy online, return in store,
Right.
but that was a positive impact to the retail environment and expanded the channels with the customer and the consumer. But for every positive we put in place in
Yeah.
in advancement, there's a negative side, and we just have to start to continuously, as you said, continuously work, diagnose the issue, and then come up with some remedies to be able to make sure that we're preventing these thefts across the entire chain.
Agreed. Agreed. So you mentioned the survey. What else is, or the NRF been working on over the last year?
Oh, we're working on an awful lot. Where the conversations around technology are something that are not only within the LP community, but of course driven from the CEO all the way down. Particularly when we look at artificial intelligence, and when we talk about protect, I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing from a session perspective with AI. Privacy is becoming a big issue across the states, and even at our nation, and AI has something to do with it. We're also, very cognitive of some of these states that are looking at legislation that may impact the use of some of these emerging technologies, facial recognition, biometrics. We want to make sure that, that's available for safety and security purposes, and doesn't get, inaccurately tied into something else that doesn't allow our retailers the opportunity to use that. One of the other pieces that I think is really near and dear to the LP Council right now is the next evolution of loss prevention or asset protection. And we're having a lot of conversations internally with the council in how do we bring the principles of enterprise security management and really the focus and the attention on a more holistic threat and loss landscape. Because as I mentioned, retail is continuing to evolve, but so are the threats and the risks. And we're seeing it today with the global conflicts, the supply chain disruptions, the concerns over brand and leadership protection, and the council is very focused on making sure that we're poised and positioned to be those trusted advisors moving forward within each of their organizations.
Yeah, I've had several offline conversations. In fact, a few people from the council that want to write articles about this sort of evolution to, the next LP form of LP. And we for many, many years we always talked about being a total business partner in LP. I just don't think we had a good name for it. I think now we're starting to name it, and now we're starting to really identify the different parts of the business. In fact, all parts of the business that LP should be involved in. And I'm loving seeing this transition within the industry.
Yeah, and our conversations that we've had is, we've come to learn that, everyone's pathway is going to be different.
Sure.
toward that whole, we'll call that enterprise security
Hmm.
management approach, or even enterprise security risk management approach, because it does have a lot to do with how the organizations are made up, constructed. Do you have an ERM team? Do you do it by committee? Where does it, how does it, and who does it fall under? But to your point, the LPAP leader and the LPAP team are well positioned to become those trusted advisors.
Right.
And I think we have to look at that next evolution of leader and make sure that they are a total business risk advisor. Some may lean a little bit too much toward the shrink, and by doing so, they're losing out on a lot of opportunities of loss. And some may focus a little bit too much on the security side and lose out on the asset protection side. What we need as an organization, and this is what we've had conversations about, is being able to build a framework,
Hmm.
because a lot of departments are doing this already, but they're doing it piecemeal. Yes, we have executive protection. Yes, we're looking at total retail loss. Yes, we're looking at, brand protection and worker safety and threat assessment. But even with conversations we've had with very senior tenured leaders of the council, and we have a special subcommittee that's working on this initiative, they've come to realize that a lot of it falls within themselves as individual leaders, and
Hmm.
even sometimes within individual executives. And we have seen that when one of those leave the organization, because there's no framework across the organization,
Yeah.
the entire thing is halted. And even in some instances, we've seen departments that have been dismantled or transitioned over to other parts of the organization. And we don't want to see that, because, the value of an LPAP team can be substantial, particularly in today's threat environment.
Yeah, I think it's true with any, organization. If it's just literally just like a personality leading a charge, it's not going to be sustainable. You've got to have that framework, like you said. And it sounds like that you're working on that. And I'm always interested to hear about the subcommittees. I don't know if you can talk too much about it, but is there an AI subcommittee?
We do not have an AI subcommittee yet,
Oh,
at least focusing on the LP side. It doesn't mean we're not talking about it, and we're having conversations about it. In fact, I would probably expect shortly after Protect us to come out with some, whether it be a blog or a paper or something that talks a little bit more about AI and its use across the LPAP. Um, I'll jump, I guess, into a little bit about Protect. We have a lot of sessions coming up at NRF Protect, which is June 8th through the 10th at the Gaylord Texan in Grapevine, Texas. We want to focus our AI sessions on the practical use of AI today. And,
great.
and that's what we've really done. AI, I think, is still for some just a couple of letters. They don't really understand it and know what it is. For others, their organizations are building a pathway that, in some instances, although albeit I think small instances, AI or LP is a leader of that. But I think most of them, LP is still waiting to see where their organizations are going with AI. But there
Hmm.
are a lot of examples out there of AI in use today in the LP world, and we have some focus sessions on how can you use it when it comes to analytics, how can you use it when it comes to helping your stores, with training and with awareness and knowledge, and then how does it work within specific technology to be able to start to integrate different types of sensors and devices. So
Right.
last year we focused a lot on the education of AI at Protect. This year there's a lot of practical use, and look, it's available today. Are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The genie is out of the bottle. And I would love for retailers to get in front of it. I mean, I was just flashing back to like Sarbanes-Oxley, right? And all of the, the different rules that went into place after the breaches that happened. Like, I mean, are we headed towards that? Like maybe we can get in front of it and prevent, some of these bad things happening before they come about.
Yeah, and not only the bad things, does have that dual use technology, right? There's good and there's bad, and we're going to talk about a little of that in a couple of sessions as well. Phone scams, for example, is one area that the use of artificial intelligence has really started to expand their capabilities, and the you know it's a challenge for people to be able to prevent those scams from taking place because they sound so real. But
Right.
we have we have a session on phone scams that'll talk a little bit about how to use some technology to prevent that. But the reality is AI is coming regardless,
Hmm.
whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's in your business, however your business is using it. If you want to remain at the forefront, you've got to educate yourself. You've got to understand how it can be used, and you really have to start to be, a player in that space. You can't just sit there and be a spectator.
Absolutely. So since we're on the topic of protect, what else do you want to talk about? Anything else exciting happening?
Well, there's a lot happening at Protect.
It's always busy.
It's always busy. This year we really want to encompass everything that's happening across the landscape of retail, and we talked about a lot of them already, where staying true to the fundamental components of asset protection and loss prevention. So we are going to talk about loss, we are going to talk about theft, and violence, and those all those different topics, but to really take them from the what's next, and to even steal from the big show theme this past January is, the what's next now is
Hmm.
what we're trying to encompass. So, yes, we continue to have to talk about these fundamentals, but how have they shifted? How have they pivoted? How have they changed? And where do we have to be today? And where do we have to go tomorrow? And that's where, we're going to continue with the total loss, but we're going to be talking about total retail loss from a unified commerce perspective, from a data collection and conjoined data stream element, from an integrated technology perspective. We're going to talk about risk and threats and ESRM, right out of the gate with our brunch with the LP Council. We've even expanded that today so that any retailer from a manager level and above can come to brunch with the LP Council and learn about the things that we're talking about, including ESRM. And we're going to have special speakers to talk about, this pathway of become a more trusted advisor across your organization. And then, the global conflicts that are taking place right now, those have a play in what we're trying to do in order to keep people, product, and brand safe. So there's a lot happening there, and then you know I I'll jump right in and we'll talk about our Ring of Excellence.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, let's talk about that.
talk about the Ring of Excellence ceremony. Well, first and foremost, our award ceremony this year, we've partnered with the LP Hall Awards. So we're expanding our overall award ceremony to also congratulate and honor individuals across the industry. So live on stage during our award ceremony, Kevin McMenamin will be presenting several awards, including LP Team of the Year, Rising Star, Solution Partner of the Year, Law Enforcement Partner of the Year, and then throughout the conference at different events, we'll be announcing other award winners. So we're thankful for Kevin to come to us, and for us to be able to expand that, because there's a lot of great work that's happening in the industry, and we want to make sure that we acknowledge it. But the this year's Ring of Excellence, I know, has something special to you, near and dear to your heart. We have four great honorees. Cheryl Blake, formerly with APRIS, but a longtime practitioner and industry partner. Cheryl's had a stellar career, Funko Lamb, GameStop. I was a friendly competitor of hers when she was with Aspect and I was with XBR.
Yep.
Um, and just a fantastic woman, has done a lot for the industry, and we're proud to see her being honored into the Ring of Excellence. Dan Faculty who is our former LP chair, was the long-serving 6 years as LP council chair. Just recently retired vice president of Southeast Grocers. Long-time history with Kmart and many others. And he's done an awful lot for the organization, and particularly for the NRF over his tenure. Eric Ives, which many people may not know Eric, depending on how long you've been in the industry, but Eric was a former FBI agent working with a major crimes unit, and actually really was one of the first folks on the federal agency side to bring organized retail crime, or what we called organized retail theft at the time, to the spotlight. He and people like Joe LaRocca, who had this role, many years ago. And then Eric went to have a stellar career with Essilor-Luxottica and J.C. Penney and Target and many others. And then last but definitely not least, someone by the name of Wayne Hoover. So
Yeah.
very, very proud to be honoring Wayne. He's done quite a bit for the industry with Wicklander Zalowski, and chair and founder of the IAI, International Association of Interviewers. And I know many of the folks who are listening here have probably sat through one of his
Right.
training training curriculums.
Yeah.
I know that he's probably not doing the chew and the do anymore for those of us who are early in his career. And I love Wayne, so I can kind of give him that.
Yeah, he's not allowed anymore.
You know better than I, but again, all four of these individuals, very pleased, very happy. It's
Yeah.
going to be an honor for me because I know all four of them, to present them on stage with their induction into the Ring of Excellence. So we have
Yeah.
a lot happening in Protect. It's just a fantastic, 2.5, 3 days. It even starts before the conference. We're always happy to have LP Magazine, LP Foundation, the Swing for Certification golf
Yeah.
tournament. So come in and come early. You
Yes, it's
know,
at the fabulous Cowboys golf course this year. It's supposed to be beautiful. I've never played there, but looking forward to that.
I look forward to chewing up anybody's lawn swinging a golf
Right.
club. So, it doesn't matter if it looks good now. It probably won't when I'm done hacking at it.
Oh, no, no. Yeah. I can't even imagine how bad my game is going to be, but you and I should probably partner up. We make each other look good.
Do that. We'll do that.
Yes. So I am just a quick comment on the Ring of Excellence. I love that the selection, a lot of mentors in that group, which is really fabulous to see, the people that have given back to the industry. And I think that's really what the Ring of Excellence, in my experience, the people I've seen in the past, picked for that, have really given a lot back to the industry and been mentors to many others. So I'm glad to see that's continuing.
Yeah, we're excited about it. We think that it's really moved into, since we changed it to a class. I think we've been able to acknowledge a lot more, as you said, many mentors and really, pioneers and key players in our industry.
Absolutely. So is there anything that you want to talk about with CORCA? I know that that was top of my mind.
Yeah, top
Something
of
that
my
finally
mind.
happened to you.
Well, knock on wood. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. But hopefully by the time this episode airs, CORCA is halfway through Congress. And what I mean by that is as of this date, which we're recording on the 8th. I'll give a date here. It is on the House calendar for a floor vote next week, which is between the 11th and the 15th. So we are very hopeful. We remain positive that it will come out of the House of Representatives with a go vote, and pass the House, which then means that we have a lot of work to do in the Senate to make sure it passes the Senate. We're appreciative of Representative David Joyce, who is the lead co-sponsor in the House, and all the work that he's done, and all of his co-sponsors. We have about 206 co-sponsors in the House. It'll take roughly about 290 votes. It has to be a two-third majority. So, we're hopeful that we are there. We don't think that we wouldn't get there. Um, but it's politics. We never know. And then we'll work with Senator Grassley's office and his co-sponsors in the Senate to see if we can actually get this passed. But
Yeah.
we're hopeful, we're positive, we're excited. But we also know that once it's passed, there's a lot of work ahead of us. We have to kind of shift our advocacy and our priorities to work with the various federal agencies, particularly HSI, if they're the ones that the bill states, are tagged with the coordination center. And how do we make sure that retailers are ready to provide them with the necessary information and there's communication back and forth and coordination? Because without the core, we could pass all the legislation we want, but if it doesn't become operational, it's not going to benefit us.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just thinking back about Scott McBride's testimony and the questions that came up. Do you feel like those things have been resolved? I know, especially Grassley had a lot of questions. What do you think the pushback is going to be this time? And I feel like you and I have talked about this like for the last 3 years. I think we have. I'll have to listen back, but
Yeah, well, I am not a political science major. I have not been involved. The extent of my political career has been whatever I've gleaned from John Gold and David French and the team at NRF. They are the
right.
experts when it comes to politics. Um, you don't know. Politics is politics. I
Hmm.
do think that, what I have seen over my tenure here is we have gone through a lot of the hurdles. And if you're looking at, I'm not a track a runner or a track star, but if you're looking at doing the 440 hurdles, we've got maybe two more hurdles to get over. If things go well in the house, right? And I think we still have some conversations. If you look at the politics of the day, there are probably still some education we need to do with why HSI is the place to be. We probably have to have some conversations of, these are focusing that the attention needs to be focused on going after the heads of the snake, these organized groups, not so much the boosters and the shoplifters, which we won't solve the issue, just arresting them. But a lot of those conversations have already taken place and have really made their way through the toughest hurdles. And I think we can get through it. It's a lot of it comes down to the retailers who continue to tell their stories, to continue to work. We've got a lot more engagement at that prosecutorial level and even at the state level, where the NDAA, we have the attorney generals, that they're crying out to Congress as well, saying this is important. We need this law. We need this coordination. We can only go so far within our local and our state jurisdictions. But to get to these groups and to really cut off the demand for that supply of stolen goods, we need that federal support. So I'm very positive that we're going to get there.
I think we will too. I think this is an absolute no-brainer. I think both sides of the aisle can agree on this. And maybe in a couple weeks when I see you at NRF, we'll have a toast and drink to the passing of this through the House at least.
I think we'll be at least through the House
Yeah,
come
yeah,
NRF, and would really love to see it completed by the end of this year.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, Dave, is there anything else you want to talk about?
Just I hope to see everybody at NRF Protect. It's lining up to be another great conference. Registration is going well. It's on par or better than last year.
Great.
So we expect to have a great group. Look forward to seeing you and the team. Thank you for everything you do for NRF and for the industry. And always a pleasure chatting with you.
Great to see you, Dave, and we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Steph.